Hi guys, it's Vanessa coming to you from the garden in Texas, just northwest of Austin in the burbs. I'm like zone 9A, 8B, so right on the edge there near the hill country in the Leander Cedar Park area. And today I'm going to show you everything that's growing in the fall garden at one of the gardens that I help manage 5 minutes from my house at the 75 Oaks farm. We're going to do a good amount of harvesting today, and I'm going to run you through things that I might be a little behind on, ways that I protect my plants from animals, the sun, and pests, and what we can look forward to in the near future with what should be growing in the garden. So let's get into it. It's time to harvest some bush beans. These are the Blue Lake bush green beans, and we had a little bit of action from the local poultry, as in chickens and turkeys, coming and kind of pecking the younger plants. So you can't see it, but there are actually tomato cages laying sideways underneath here, which protects the heart of the plant, even if they get a little nibbly on top. But these things are loaded down with green beans. It's definitely been warm enough to grow another round of green beans. These get to maturity faster than a pole bean that grows on a vine, although there is a Blue Lake pole bean, and they just produce a really uniform, consistent, crunchy bean that's good for storage, but great for fresh eating. So let's do a harvest. These beans will go until we have a pretty decent frost. If we have a light frost that's a little early, I will cover them easily, since they're in bush format, with a pretty thick frost cloth, and they may kind of melt back a little bit at the very top of the leaves, but they'll probably survive and produce a little bit more, because here in Texas, sometimes we get that really cold dip, but it's for like a day, and then we're back to the 80s again, which makes it worth it in these transitional time frames to actually protect some of your plants within reason. Don't stress yourself out about it. This guy, you can almost feel and see some of the beans inside the pod, which means it's probably a little bit older than we would like to pick. This is where I would say that's a pretty good green bean right there. These are really good for snacking. They're super sweet, like a sweet pea. Literally tastes like a sweet pea. But these guys are really good for sauteing, steaming, pressure canning, all that good stuff. And these are getting packaged up into pint containers to sell here on the farm. My friends are here today. These are Sir and Ma'am. Hi guys. They're a bonded pair of what I call fairy tale geese. Good morning. It's okay, sir. I'm not going to touch ma'am. This plant behind me is one singular Roselle hibiscus plant. Yeah. So it goes from all the way over here outside of the screen all the way to the ground, and it was planted kind of in the April time frame. It's flowering, and the calyxes or calyces are getting ready to be harvested. Let me show you what it looks like when it's time to harvest the calyx, and to the extent the size of this plant is, because it's quite literally a tree trunk growing out of the garden bed. So look at this thing. It's massive. And it just, wind has knocked it over. It snapped a few branches. I have continuously gone in and cut the branches so that they branch out more. So we have an enormous amount of calyxes or calyces that are ready and will be ready soon. If you see here, this is what the flowers look like before they open for the morning, because it's pretty early right now. And eventually this flower will die and fall off. And then the calyx will go from a smaller calyx like this to one that has what looks like to be a seed pod forming in there. After a few days, this is ready to pick, and you remove the seed pod, and then you can have these petals or these calyx fresh or dried. And this is what we use for hibiscus tea. And this is part of growing a tea garden. This plant grows all through the summertime. And this is pretty much what they look like. They could be a little more plump, but this is pretty much what they look like when you want to harvest them. And I got probably like 2 gallons of these off of just my first round of harvesting. I've got some Tuscan kale that is ready to be picked, and this is my DIY bed cover here. So I am going to take off this kind of mosquito netting that I placed on here, and we're going to harvest some kale. I have like 75 more Tuscan kale plants to transplant out. I just have not had time. This is my favorite variety of kale because it's really good for cooking or rubbing as a massage kale salad. That's like honestly my favorite way to have it. And you can pick this down to like pretty small leaves to make a bundle. Yeah, look at that. There we go. Here's a bed that was very touch and go for a bit because this irrigation is not my favorite. So a lot of this stuff was having trouble getting watered. We had to run these tiny lines really close to a lot of these plants. But here's a Tuscan kale This is a broccoli. There's about 3 or 4 more broccolis in there. There is a Brussels sprout. And then there's some bush beans in here that are just now starting to come up once we figured out irrigation a little bit more. And then I've got companion plants of marigolds, but this whole thing is a DIY trellis. And in order to keep some of the farm animals out and keep cabbage moths from laying eggs on this area, I just have a cheap mosquito netting clamped over the top using some old irrigation tubing clamped over the PVC. We've got a good amount of snacking peppers that we need to pick, and these peppers have not been trellised very well. The plants are huge. They were planted kind of early summer time frame, but this is really pepper season here in Texas. So at my garden, I have loads of peppers that I'm picking currently and still need to pick. And here there's a farm store where we sell some of the things from the farm. And so sweet snacking peppers are very family friendly. So we're gonna go ahead and pick some from some of these corner beds that we have. Yeah, those are snacking peppers. I think these, I don't even know what variety of peppers these are. And you'll see next to these peppers are a lot of healthy tomatoes. They are setting fruit, but they're all green still. In this bed, I've got some non-spicy jalapenos. I think they're called notapinos, but there's a few different varieties. Texas A&M actually helped breed a handful of these varieties so that the Scoville units would be lower so that salsa makers could make medium, mild kind of salsas that weren't super spicy, but still had the flavor of jalapenos. And I can tell you for sure that these jalapenos are not spicy at all. Now, I love spicy peppers. I grow a lot of spicy peppers, but at a family farm, it's not really super popular. But these are really beautiful jalapenos, and they taste really good roasted. This is an empty bed. It has a little bit of dichondra in it we've been using as a ground cover in different areas. But this bed will have leafy greens like brassicas, and this bed has some fenugreek that I planted as a cover crop, but we had very poor germination. So it's going to be mostly brassicas as well. And then these beds, as we clear them up, will get garlic all inside of them. Sorry, someone's laying an egg right now. And there will most likely be garlic all along the edges of these beds. Our moringa will come out and the Roselle hibiscus will get yanked out eventually. Once we've harvested enough, there'll probably be more garlic inside of this bed as well. My moringa tree is actually flowering, so we're not going to pick the flowers, so maybe we get some seed pods, but I have continuously cut this tree from the middle of the plant so it'll branch out and bush out more, but I didn't stay on top of it for the last few weeks. So some of these branches are a little bit taller than me, but I specifically will take these leaves, dehydrate them, powder them, and put them into capsules, and I take 2 every day as energizing mineral loaded supplement, and it's pretty good. So let's harvest some moringa. And moringa has all 9 amino acids that humans need to function, so this stuff is a powerhouse. I do have a few straggler beets that are not on good irrigation, and you know, the geese manage them for me, but they don't do the best job. So they are starting to form actual beets, and I do have some carrots also planted in this area that are starting to form now, but they have struggled without irrigation. So you can see here we have loads of carrots growing in, like loads, and these are the Garden in Minutes irrigation grids. So once we got these grids installed on some of these beds, things started to grow so much better. We had like maybe 2% germination prior to the grids. And then you can see over here, we've got loads of beets growing in as well. So this is just kind of fit in place. But for the most part, these are just going to rock and roll into the winter time. And we'll be picking loads and loads of carrots here in the next couple months. So we did actually manage to plant some of my seed potatoes that I had saved from my harvest in May of this year. So originally they were seed potatoes I purchased in February timeframe, planted those out, harvested in May, ate some of them, saved some of them, let them sprout a little bit. And these are red Lesota and Yukon Gold potatoes that do really well here and get to maturity pretty quickly. This is them coming up out of the dirt, and we probably will need to protect these during a frost, which is why fall potatoes are a little bit difficult. But if we can manage to protect them, then we might have potatoes on Christmas. Now, underneath these coverings, which is just mosquito net, some cheap PVC that we've bent into hoops, some extra tomato cages laying on their side, and a bed sheet. We have some lettuce going, but it's been pretty hard to start lettuce this year with how hot it is. But arugula is always my girl, and so she's the main one popping off inside this bed. Unfortunately, some of the other lettuce is already bitter, so we're going to yank out some of it and then plant some more because lettuce is pretty frost tolerant. Now, I treat my arugula like a cut and come again, and these are actually just planted using microgreen seeds because you can get a lot of physical seeds in one bag for a good price. And then you can just dump those seeds out indiscriminately and then just cut and come again for weeks and weeks and weeks with arugula, depending on how your weather is. Now I also have some butter lettuce growing in here, and I've got some random spinach, but the butter lettuce is bitter. It did not like the heat that we've had, even with a little shade cloth over it. So back to the arugula. It's a stunner, but I'll sow some more lettuce seeds here soon in this area. And this has Garden in Minutes irrigation on it, as well as these cabbages and winter choy that I planted in this bed with Garden in Minutes irrigation, which looks like this now. I also did some celery, and I threw in like a couple Brussels sprouts in here, but things are growing. It's a little slow, but they're getting there. Now we've got some flowers that are still going right now, and then we'll be planting some more cold weather flowers soon. I have trays of snapdragons and calendula and chamomile that are ready to transplant out, and this is what they look like. I did some apple blossom snapdragons, and I do round after round of chamomile outside over the winter time, and the snapdragons are about to bloom. And we still have some butterfly pea that is gorgeous, just taking off. This is the butterfly pea that we have been letting go to seed. It's been taking over, so this is why it gets its name, butterfly pea, because it does produce a pea-like pod that is not edible, but we are growing this for seed supply so that we can sell seeds. So we've got some pods here. This one's pretty crispy and brown, and that will be harvested for seeds. And so you'll see that we have lots and lots of pods on here. We've been picking flowers daily and drying them for the tea garden stash. And this makes a really cool color changing tea that is good for feminine health in general. In the pollinator side of things, this is our African blue basil that is usually just absolutely covered in bees. Of course, we have marigolds popping off. Hello. We've got lavender. There is yarrow in this bed. Lots of salvia that was started from seed. More salvia started from seed. And our favorite Greg's Miss that has been just loaded down with monarchs as they migrate this time of year through Texas. Been attempting to install a native garden in certain areas of the farm. So we've got some batface cupfia, blackfoot daisy, some obedient plant, beautyberry, echinacea, some mealy blue sage, and some rock rose. Lots of different salvias, some bulbine. And I have a tomato growing out of that bulbine. I don't know how that happened. Some marshmallow plants and some Texas star hibiscus. And apparently I'm growing a chicken. This chicken's name is Coconut. She's a menace. And we've got some Esperanza, and there is some prairie verbena down on the ground as a ground cover. And then I've got some flame acanthus, some native lantana, some firebush, more blackfoot daisy that's doing a lot better, some holy basil, and some fall asters, hot lip salvia. There is an almond verbena there, and some Turk's cap. Some more Texas star hibiscus, and then herbs. We've got holy basil like crazy everywhere that we've been harvesting for tea. And then we've got garlic chives, tarragon that is honestly taking over this entire bed. And the garlic chives are going to seed, so we'll be saving those seeds. And then we've got some dill. This is some bouquet dill that's starting to flower. Great for pollinators. And then we have the infamous mint bed. We've got apple mint, some actual peppermint, and some chocolate mint. You'll see this is what the chocolate mint looks like, and then this is the peppermint. All used for tea. If you didn't plant much of a fall garden because late summer heat beat you down, don't feel bad. That was me as well. A lot of this stuff was planted out in really small spurts because I just could not get my act together. I don't know, I couldn't get acclimated because we had such a cool summer, and then it just got really dry and hot for a bit. So do not feel bad, because this garden here was pretty much a blank slate until I started helping manage it. But my garden at my home, I've had to really work on cleaning up before I could even plant anything. So don't feel bad if you feel like you just want to rest right now. Your garden deserves it. You deserve it. When you're ready to get back in the game, come January, February, we'll start talking spring gardening. Don't worry, I got you covered. And then no matter what, you know what I'm going to say. When it's time, get out there and try something new, because remember, if you never grow, you'll never know.